Welcome to Yap Session, a place where I get to yap about everything I read because I like to read. Glasses? I'm a nerd. I'm kidding. I read a lot of books and I just want to be able to yap about them. If you want to listen to them, yay! If I'm a good storyteller, yay! Who wants to listen and say that I'm a good storyteller? Me, because I'm going to be the only one watching this, but that's fine. Today, I wanted to talk about Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica. So, I read this a while ago, okay? But it's been on my mind for so freaking long. I need to put it out there. I need to put it out there so I can move on, because that book has had me on a chokehold, even though I thought it wasn't going to be, but it is, and I'm feeling it. I read it in Spanish, because I'm Latina. If anybody, aka me who's watching, feels as though, like, if you know the language that is that a book, or not even a book, a movie is based on, and then you see kind of like the translated version that you also speak. So for example, like me, I speak Spanish, and if I see something or if I read something that's originally from Spanish and then it's translated to English, I always have a feeling that I never like the English translation because they don't get it. So I always read the Spanish one. However, I also like different language speaking authors. I don't speak that language, so I read the translated version. It's good, but I guess it's because I don't know the original language. I don't know. I just prefer, if it's originated in Spanish, I'm gonna read it in Spanish. Also because I need to practice Spanish and not forget it. But anyways, I'm gonna yap about it. So if you want to get cozy, or if you want to just, I don't know, do whatever you want. No judgment here. There's a safe space. Pookie. Sorry. I'm acting as if I'm like in a phone call so that it doesn't feel awkward. I don't know how people do this, but I just need to yap about it to get it off my chest. So thank you for those who are watching, aka me, who's probably watching in PJs, lying on the couch and being like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. So a little bit of background about this book. It was originally published in 2017, but it wasn't translated until 2020. And I remember around that time, mostly around like 2021, 2022 is when it started becoming like really popular. I would always hear like, oh, Tender is the Flesh, Tender is the Flesh, a lot of like stuff on social media. But specifically, it was a lot of people had varying different reactions to the ending, and I was always fascinated by it. Not to the point to read it though, because I didn't read this book until earlier this year, I think. So if I get things wrong, my bad. That's all on me. Sorry to that man. So it always fascinated me. I read The Unworthy from Agustina Bazterrica first, because so I had a whole month where I dedicated myself to just read like books about cults, and or the theme was cults, and that book, The Unworthy, has the theme of cults. So I was just like, oh, definitely gonna check that out. Really liked it. Has one specific scene that is engraved in my mind because it's so horrendous, but it's so heart-wrenching at the same time. Like, it's not just, you don't feel scared, you feel terrified, but so much grief. Maybe I'll do one. Maybe I'll yap about it another time. Maybe I won't. Maybe this is just gonna be like this freaking video and that's it. I don't know, we'll see. Anyways, so later, because I really liked that book, I was like, oh, I should definitely give Tender is the Flesh a try. It's from the same author. Why not? So I did. And also, I read it through audiobook. I didn't like, I feel like experiences are different, not a fast reader. So if I'm gonna read a book, it takes me a long time compared to audiobooks, because thankfully I have a job that I don't need to use my brain. I don't get paid as much, but it's okay. It's okay. In this economy, it doesn't matter. Point is, I don't really need to use my brain. Therefore, I just like read a bunch of audiobooks. I read it in Spanish. It was a really short book also. I started the book already being like, oh, I wonder how the ending is gonna be, because a lot of people had a lot of different, yes, I do know English. English is not my first language. Different reactions to the ending. So I was already like, oh, I wonder how the ending is gonna be. I wonder how the ending is gonna be. I didn't think that the ending was like, oh my God. I didn't think that. Was it surprising? Yes. But was it like so surprising to the point that I didn't see it coming? No. And so I wonder if it's because I knew the ending was going to be somewhat of a reactionatory way, because of everything that I knew. I didn't know how it was going to end, but I knew the reaction of how it was going to end, the reaction it gave to people. So I wonder if that had anything to do with the way that I saw the ending, but I didn't see it as shocking as people made it out to be. So if you read it and had a particular way of seeing the ending, let me know. Then again, maybe it'll just be me answering to myself because I am the only viewer. I'm just gonna do like a quick summary of everything. I will get into spoilers, but I'll probably like give a notification in case you haven't seen it. In case you haven't read it. I recommend it. Now I'm just putting it out there. I really recommend it. However, I don't if you are very squeamish, or if just like harsh topics of like a lot of heavy things. So if you're not a particular enjoyer of that, I wouldn't recommend it. However, I really like that. I'm not a cannibal. Can you imagine? That's the only reason why I like that book. No, I'm kidding. So the story starts, we meet our main guy, Tejo, Marcos Tejo. He's in charge of this kind of like fridge. Cattle, takes care of the meat, okay? He takes care of the produce and maintains it and all that kind of stuff. He's pretty like kind of right-hand man-ish. And we get to find out this world in which the produce, the product, are humans. Right. Because apparently a few years ago, from the setting of this story, there was a virus that was contracted towards animals, and which made them unable to be eaten, and they had to be killed off. And so the world, or in this case Argentina, because it takes place in Argentina, was forced to decide whether or not they would keep the production of meat or not. And what does that mean? What is the other available meat product? Right. So the way that this story is like figured out and in the world building is fascinating, because it does say that they tried to be vegan for a while, but then like people were going crazy, and to the point where they started production of selling human meat. And it was I could see this happening, aka very dystopia, very 1984, like, we're living in it, dude, we're living in it. Everything that happens is possible, does make sense that it would get to that point. But now it's gone to the point where it's normalized. Tejo used to work for a meat factory with his father, actual meat, not human meat. And it was during his adulthood where that happened, that transition happened, and it affected his father to the point that he became insane and is now being cared by a old person institute. I forgot what they're called. But he's being taken care for in a facility. And there's a line that the book says that Tejo's thinking of, which is, the only people that stay sane go insane. I'm paraphrasing, that's not the exact verbiage, but that's kind of like the point, and I thought that was very fascinating. Tejo, on the other hand, is fine with the idea of it. The society has gone to the point where it's normalized. It's not anything too far out. It's just the way it is. They've become accustomed to it, normalized to it. And so he has to deal with the production, and the way that each meat is produced is very particular. The age is very important. The gender is very important. The race also comes into play, of like, all of these things come into play of how worthy the meat is or how unworthy it is. Like the other book. Right. It's very interesting, because even then, all of these things come into play of how valuable or priceable the meat is. It's also gotten far enough to where there's a distinction between pure meat and non-pure meat. So nowadays, you're seeing in the story, you're seeing the rise of pureness of the meat, aka the human cattle were already born that way and born into facilities, therefore never gaining human cognition and their way of acting, their way of being as animals. I'm pretty sure they cut off their tongues, or either they take their vocal cords out so they don't make any noise, therefore repressing them more from their humanity. And so he was living life. That was a really unrelatable narrator, because throughout the whole entire book, you think he thinks of himself as being more not okay with this than it seems, because he points out the juxtaposition of everything, the hypocrisy of everyone, specifically with his sister, which I'll get into later. But I freaking knew that liar from the beginning. That man pissed me off. But I'll get into that. So he really liked his father. He loved his father, and his descent to madness is something that stays with him. Not only that, more trauma, because he was married, or is married, because they never divorced. They're separated because apparently they were trying to get pregnant. His wife had a child. The child died. So he is really like, that is the beginning of where he's at in the book. And that's something that it constantly haunts him. And because of that, the relationship between him and his wife even when he tries to talk to her, because she lives with her mother, she's just very unresponsive, which makes sense. They had later it's described how they had been trying for so long. When they were finally able to, the baby just dies in his sleep, which is awful. That's the mindset that he's in the beginning, and that's how he moves on in his life, how he doesn't know where to go, what to do. When he has to go visit his father, it's just more added of how everything is wrong, right? However, during the first part, at the end, he is given a gift. And what is that gift? From what I understood, a rare meat in the form of a young woman. Right. Knowing how graphic and how rough this began, I was scared when they ended a young woman. Oh, traumatized, man. Oh. Obviously, he sees her as like a pet. So he keeps her like outside, doesn't really want her, doesn't really want anything to do with her. And she is obviously she has been raised as cattle, therefore her reactions, the way that she is as if she were a dog. And unfortunately, I guess this is where I'm gonna like go into spoilers. Unfortunately, he gets to a point where he's like, oh, I should take care of her. I should, she's really dirty. I should shower her. When he does, her scent is like jasmine. So that's what he ends up calling her, Jasmine. And it gets to a point where he ends up her. And I was like, no, I knew it was gonna happen, but no, she doesn't know what's going on. And lo and behold, what happens? She gets pregnant. Right. Complete 180 from this man, because he's just like, she is the center of my world. I don't want to do anything else except be with her forever. Don't piss me off. So he basically ends up, wanting less and less to go to work. Something that is mentioned as a part of his job is because you don't kill the cattle right away. You basically knock them out, and when they're knocked out, that's when you kill them. Because if not, then the meat is not going to be as good. And so, because there's they need to hire someone new. And because he's the right-hand man, he's showing them around. And it's very point of interest. One man is very disgusted by everything, versus another man, which is very excited about it, watching everything. And something that Tejo mentions is that, yes, the most likely will get the other guy who's disgusted by everything, because if you're excited by it, then that's a pleasurable thing, which is not what we're doing. You need to have a various level of discomfort and disgust to do this job good. So that was very fascinating. I really enjoyed that aspect. But he ends up showing them and shows them the process. And so how they knock out the cattle, everyone, or the people that are doing it, go towards the meat and says something to them. And that makes them very relaxed, very unafraid. And then they knock them out. And so one of them asked, oh, what did they say? And then they was like, everyone has their own thing, but it's something that you have to do in all honesty, so that when you knock them out, they are as calm as can be. And so he's doing that. He's doing work stuff, doesn't want to because he wants to be with Jasmine. It's all he can think of. And later on, we're shown his sister, and his sister, in his eyes, is like the epitome of hypocrisy, because his sister wants to appear as though they have money, everything's good, everything's dandy. She has 2 kids, and the 2 kids, because he gets invited over for dinner, does not want to go, but goes nonetheless. And the kids end up playing a game called Cadáver Exquisito. I don't know if that's how they do it in the English translation, but that's the title of the book. And the game is basically thinking, oh, you're eating meat. Oh, I wonder where this meat came from. Were they an athlete? Were they, it was a woman in her, like kind of like trying to guess who they were in real life. And that disturbs the mom so much that she gets like really, really angry, because it's showing how, oh no, this isn't human meat. No, this is just regular. This is normal. Kind of wanting to dissociate from the reality of everything, of where this comes from. So their father dies, right? And the sister wants to take care of the funeral, wants to have like the ceremony of everything, the wake, and Tejo, but she needs the ashes. And Tejo's like, hell no, because you never cared about him. Why the heck am I gonna give you his ashes? I'm the one that cared for him. I'm the one that loved him. You didn't do anything. And she says no. I assume she believes that she did help or anything, but for Tejo, it's just, you just want appearances. You just want to show everyone that you cared, but you never actually did. And it's kind of like this parallelism, is that a word? This parallel of her hypocrisy and how she's navigating the world through her eyes, how she views herself in this environment, compared to Tejo, who is a third person, seeing how hypocritical she's being. So he hates her sister. And it's actually, I feel like there was a little bit more with that. I feel if I did a second reading, it might make more sense. But Tejo said she never meshed with either her father or him. And specifically around his work, which was in a meat produce factory. So I wonder if gender had anything to do with it. I feel like there is. I feel like there's like a underlying disconnect as to why she didn't mix with her father, her brother. I feel like there was something in there. But nonetheless, she just wants the ashes because she wants to give appearances. And something that I found really interesting was there are still animals. There are still birds because they had to kill everything, but now there's like starting to populate smallly in small portions. Also showing the juxtaposition, because there is a rumor that if you get pooed on by the birds, you will die. And so everyone that walks, like leaves and is just like randomly walking, always carries umbrellas, right? And so the first thing that she says when Tejo comes to her house, why don't you have an umbrella? Don't you know how dangerous that is? And Tejo being like, you're not gonna die. Like, that's just, the virus isn't here anymore. Well, actually, I don't know if the virus is there anymore, but it's like not contracted to the current animals. So he's just like, it's not it's a lie. You're living a lie. But even if he says that, she is still steadfast of like, because when he leaves, he's like, and don't forget to get an umbrella. Something else, this happens around the beginning of the book. There's a butcher who he like gives the meat to. Well, there's various butchers, but one of the first butchers, I'm pretty sure, is a woman. And he describes how she came to place and how she is just very like ruthless. She's very ruthless because she had to establish her dominance for her to be taken seriously, specifically because she was like one of the first, if not the first, to establish the human meat market. And so he goes and like, oh yeah, and then she takes him back, and it's intense. It's kind of like the way it was described. Besides, well, I wouldn't say graphic. It was very like hunter predator. I know it sounds bad, but like it's intentional in that kind of aspect, the way it was written. Not only that, but like she has an assistant who he doesn't talk or something like that. But apparently like the assistant really likes her and like ends up kind of like spying in on them. He's all, no, I'm kidding. Actually no, he didn't enjoy it, so he wasn't. Anyways, so just like small little things establishing not only the world, but also just like the history of how they came to be right now, the particularities of it. Anyways, he wants to go back to Jasmine. But at this point, he calls, or is called by her, he is called by his wife. And apparently like the wife is actually wanting to talk to him, try to like connect again. Man has a whole woman pregnant. Yeah, at this point he's just like, it is what it is. He doesn't really like reciprocate because. And so another thing in terms of like the world building, there's an if you have a pet, not for meat consumption, well actually you can have it for meat consumption, which is another whole thing, just because they're described like, oh, little bits and pieces are cut up. Right. But there are some that like don't. The point is you can't your pet. So there are inspectors who come, like, because she was registered as like, oh, I gave this animal / meat to this person. The inspector came once, said everything was good, and now it's coming again. And at this point she's pregnant, and that is a no-no because there are rules in place. Because before there weren't any rules, and there was this one situation where the man didn't want to be with his wife because he already had. You see how realistic this is? Because of course that would happen. And so they put in regulations for that. So there's always like an inspector that comes to see that everything is okay, that the meat is being used as it was intended. And so she is pregnant, so that's why he's just like, oh no. But because he's a man in high places, he knows the people, he makes a little call and says, oh yeah, well, she was already like inspected. I don't know why like they came again. And so like his boss on the other line tells the inspector like, oh yeah, you don't have to worry, like it's fine. Corruption. And so he's like, phew, almost died there. But then two things happen. First, like the funeral happens of his father, and one of the reasons why the sister asked him to come was because, exactly, nowadays you can have like live-in meats. You can have like your own fridge, like huge fridge, and then have a live-in meat that you like slowly cut, if not die fully, and then have the meat stored in their home rather than going to the butcher. There's a new thing that's like occurring. Only the people in high places in have it, and she wants that because of appearances, money. I am a woman of wealth. How's your short queen? This is God. Well, and so he knows that was the reason besides asking for the ashes, and so he was just like, no. Anyways, he ends up scattering the ashes in a abandoned zoo, which will be the reason why I knew that man was a liar. So I'll talk about it later. But it was a zoo that he and his father really loved, abandoned, because he killed all the animals. And so he just placed dirt, and then he's just like, she's not gonna have any part of you, Dad. He takes the ashes to the funeral. There's a lot of people. It's more for show rather than the people that cared. He goes, enters the ashes, but finds out she has a fridge now. So she found a way, because he said, no, I'm not gonna tell you how to do that, where to find a living meat, but she found a way. Because if there's a will, there's a way, and she will find it. So he's just like, okay, yeah, I'm done here. He ends up going off on her, basically talking about her hypocrisy, talking about how she never cared about her dad, how this is all for show. And so he's leaving, and she wants to go after him. But because of the birds, because she doesn't have an umbrella, she's so scared that she doesn't, and he is able to leave. There is a scene towards the end where he has to go on a trip, but he says it's like his final trips to, I don't exactly remember what it is about, I don't think he's bringing me or anything, I don't remember. But it's very interesting how most of them, it's being hosted by one of the richest men there, and all of the others are also like pretty wealthy men, and how deplorable their treatment of the meat, of their pets are, and to the point where they're kind of like in a society or something, because it's like for a dinner or for a whole day feast, and the meat for that was one of the people in their circle who said, you guys can eat me when, like, because I don't know if he was gonna die or if he wasn't, but he just wanted his meat to be eaten, because he was a musician, if I'm not correct, or if I am correct. And so they were talking about like the specific body parts of his profession. It was fascinating because it is those in high places with money who find the weirdest ways to use their power. And all the while, Tejo's like, my Jasmine. Not even commenting on the horrendousness of their actions, because he didn't even react, because he didn't even care. He just wanted to go back to his safe haven. So he himself was turning a blind eye by all of that. Is it because of who he is, which I will get into, or is it because he's just so accustomed to dealing with these type of people that it just doesn't faze him anymore? Like, this is just how normalized it is in society, of finding loopholes, finding ways around to do the worst the most randomly worst things for fun. That doesn't say anything about our society. What does? What does? But anyways, he's able to he comes back. Yay! And what's happening? Childbirth. Even though it's early and he's worried. So what does he do? What does he do? Who's a nurse? His wife. He calls his wife to come and help the childbirth, right? And at first she's just like, what have you done? But then he's like, it's my baby. And so she's like, okay. So she helps with the birth. And when the baby is born, and that's when I knew, that's when I knew. Because tell me why both of them hold the baby, don't even give it to her, give it to Jasmine. And Jasmine's just asking for it. Like, please give me my baby. Even though she was born as an animal, no human instinct, the first thing that she wanted to do after giving birth is to hold her child. And that goes into the parallelism earlier in the book when because Tejo's main production is female meat. And one specific thing is that they tell or they show is that they have to be very careful with pregnant women because like they have to be like their hands have to be like on the thing because, and the book said, because it's as if they have an instinct that if they give birth, something bad will happen to the child. So they prefer to end it before. And because of that, they have to be restrained. So the motherly instinct of the safety of the child, she didn't even know, just wanted to hold her baby, was take it, like they left the room with the baby and acted as if it was their own. Technically it was Tejo's, but it wasn't the wife, but she was acting as if it was hers. I was like, no. And that's when she, like, Jasmine gets off the bed, like is crawling to get to her baby. And that's when Tejo goes to her and says something. She completely relaxes. It feels calm, knocks her out. And she dies. And the wife's first thing, why did you kill her? She couldn't have given us more babies. Because she was never seen as a human. She was never seen as a woman. She was never seen as a human being. She was always seen as a pet. So I wonder if people realize that Tejo was also like that since the beginning. Because I freaking knew that. Man, the deplorable man. Because in the beginning, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, he understands the hypocrisy of everything. Like, for example, like with his sister. But when he goes to the abandoned zoo, the first time he sees like a bunch of puppies and he's so excited. He's like, oh my gosh. He starts playing with them, right? The second time he comes, I think it's after the dad dies, he sees these kids, basically the puppies. What does he do? Nothing. He just sees it, decides to do absolutely nothing. Even though he even reflected it the first time, paralleled it with his son, with like, oh, the innocence, the beauty of his son. So he didn't do anything. He just stood and watched. After that comparison, whenever at the end, when he was with these people, didn't care about anything that they did, saw it as a blind eye. You are like your sister, my guy. You are a hypocrite. trying to make yourself seem as though you're higher than all of this. You're just complacent. You're just like running the world, not running, walking through this world, just trying to survive it. Still making yourself out to seem as though you understand the wrongness of this. I knew that man was a liar. Like, oh man, no kidding. I was flabbergasted. But then again, I saw it coming. Like it wasn't so surprising. So that's why I'm interested to see why people felt the way that they did. Of such a, what did you think about the ending? You, I mean me, and we know. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And there was also like other stuff that I didn't go into, more about like the world building, more about the different things which add on to, which is really, really good. I know it's particularly interesting, the relationship between Argentina and meat, because there was a period of time where they weren't able to have meat or something like that. I actually never researched about that, so I do want to research about that. But I wonder if it has some sort, I assume it does, some parallelism. Some things that I did write about it that I did want to go into is how there's like a difference between the brutality of a society towards the brutality of an individual. Not a difference, more of like a parallelism, because you could see how everything was working in a whole and how it was affecting individually. And I think that's very fascinating. Oh yeah, also just the confidence that the narrator had, aka Tejo. And because of that confidence, you kind of end up believing him. That is not the case. That man. And how regulations kind of like a in place for order. Not necessarily maintaining order or maintaining justice. It's more of like for the appearance of, yeah, we have everything under control. When literally all of the books show that no, people find loopholes, people find ways. There's never actual order and justice. It's just these regulations are put to be seen as order, as justice. And I found that very fascinating. But anyways, that was my yab session. How much did the author piss me? No, not the author. Not the author. How much did that main man piss me off so freaking much? Oh my god. All in all, like I said, it's rent-free in my mind. Let me know what you thought, aka me, aka we know what we thought. But yeah, thank you for watching.